Hello and welcome to Mental Health Buzz. I'm Linda. Today we're going to discuss the hidden effects of childhood sexual abuse. We're going to take things slowly so that it makes it easier to ease into the information. We're going to be gentle. I've been on a long journey myself to find out the information that I'm going to present to you today. It's important information because it helps create order out of the chaos that childhood sexual abuse puts into our life. And it can feel so chaotic in our lives, or our lives can feel chaotic, whichever way suits. And the best thing that we can do is begin to put it in an order that makes sense to us in order that we can have a deep healing. I've been fortunate enough that over the years I've been led along a path that has provided me with deep healing for the trauma. Now, the trauma sits within us until we're at a point where we're strong enough, we're built up enough to deal with how deep each part goes within us. When we first come to an understanding that we have to heal from this trauma, I read a book and it said it can take up to 5 years to heal. And at that time, I was just like, this has affected so much of my life. I don't want it to take that long. I'm going to do it in less than 5 years. Well, the healing process happens as we go through life, and it's like the proverbial onion where we peel away layer after layer, and then eventually in our own time and space, when we've built up enough strength, we can face each layer. So each layer requires a strength. So for me, 14 years later, I have this information now. I'm down to probably the last bit of the trauma, but if I knew in the beginning that it'd take me this long because of my life circumstances, you think, oh, would I have done it? And look, unequivocally, the answer is yes, you would do it. So it doesn't matter the length of time because life happens as well. What matters is that we keep addressing it each time it comes up. The most unproductive thing you can do is keep going back in to the trauma when you think, I just want to deal with it. I just want to deal with it and get it over with, and go back in and in and in and then look at it. Don't bother. You'll just stay in the past. Each set of circumstances unique to your life means that at any given point in time, another piece will come up for you to address. And that's part of what psychology addresses these days and calls it mindfulness, that we just stay in today and we address one thing one at a time. The first thing from the effects of childhood sexual abuse is the process of learning to build trust gets derailed. So when you're in a family and the family is functional, over time you learn from your family and for what's around you, the circumstances, you learn how to trust. But when childhood sexual abuse happens, that whole process of learning trust gets derailed. You're disconnected from it because your trust as a person is gone. You've never had a chance to learn how to build trust. So as an adult, we need to learn how to build trust, how to discern relationships that are trustworthy. Step one on a process is learn how to trust. Learn what to trust in relationships. Learn what to trust about people and probably every area of your life. More importantly, I think and I believe and have practiced that the first thing that I needed to learn was how to trust myself. So I learned to be able to look at the decisions I was making, what was going to be the effect of that decision, was it a good effect or not, and if not, don't make that decision. If it's a good effect, then make the decision. And in doing so, you build up your ability that you can trust you. You can trust the decisions that you're making. So that's the first thing. The next thing that we're trained in is that we are powerless to prevent sexual intrusion. And you probably don't have to go much further than your teenage years to understand that. I have the most basic of basic examples of this. I was in high school and I remember this group of people around me and they said this guy liked me and it's like, you know, you've got to kiss him. And I'm standing there going, I don't think I even know this guy. Like, I've seen him around, you know, and I just couldn't understand the whole concept of saying, no, I don't have to do this. So I ended up kissing this guy and it was just like, I don't think I ever saw the guy again. But when you amplify that into adult life, you can then look at how you've been derailed and had your power taken away. You've never known that you're allowed to say no. That's why saying no becomes such a big thing in our adult life, because We didn't know we could say no. We certainly couldn't say no as a child. That was the problem. But because it got derailed as it worked up into our adult life, we didn't know we could say no to anything or anyone or whatever. So we keep saying yes and we keep being kind. That's one of the things I learned about myself, is that from the experience of childhood sexual abuse, I determined that I would always be kind because I felt it was the most unkind thing that was done in my life. But kindness has a double-edged sword for us, but we'll talk about that later. We've become trained to perform for love. Now, every single person in here that's had an experience with a narcissist will know exactly what I mean. These people came along, initially they treated us well, but then when they didn't treat us well, we began to jump through hoops for them in order to try and win their love. And that's what keeps us hooked into the narcissist, is that we think we have to keep performing for their love. We don't. We need to walk away from people who are like that, from people who don't appreciate us, who don't know how to use the words thank you, who don't know how to use the words I'm sorry, who don't want to sit down and have an adult conversation. Because I want you to remember this. You are an adult who wants to sit down and have the conversations to work things out. And that's a good thing. Walk away from people where you feel that you have to perform for love, because you don't. Love is something that people feel it from the heart and we give it too. But because it got derailed for us, we actually have to flip it and we have to learn love within ourselves first. So we go back to the previous point, which is that we're allowed to say no. And we're actually allowed to say no to having someone in our life, even if they are lovely, because it's simply where we're at today and what I need today. We have this whole realm of healing that unless you've been there, people don't understand. And that's okay. But we need to address our realm of healing first. This one is a big one. We are trained to believe that we are worthless. So when I think about this, I don't put the whole word worthless together. I split it because I don't feel that I'm worthless. I feel that I'm worth less than other people. So the childhood sexual abuse taught me that you are worth more than me, so therefore I have to acquiesce to all your demands because you're worth more. So I'll do whatever you want because you're worth more. Well, it's rubbish. We are worthy and we are worth more too. So when you put it in that context, it makes a lot more sense than simply saying, oh, well, I'm not worthy. Well, yeah, we all know we're worthy. It's just that from the sexual abuse, we believe we are worth less than other people. So that has to stop. We all have the same worth. Okay, this is a tough one. We've all been trained to shut down emotionally. We can, some, not all. We have an inability to feel or express emotion. Now, I want to be really, really clear here because I struggle with this when it says we have an inability to feel emotion. We feel it all right. We just shut it down. We try and make life logical because the emotions are overwhelming. Life isn't lived in the logic. It's lived with all of our thoughts and emotions, our soul, our character, our free will, all working in tune together. And it's like a beautiful piece of music. When they're all lined up and working together, it's a symphony that touches other people's lives. We have feelings of low self-esteem. And that's true. A lot of us have asked questions about how do I build my self-esteem? One of the very first things I did to build my self-esteem was start listening to everybody around me who kept saying what a nice person I am, or you're very kind, or whatever the nice saying was. However they complimented me, I started to choose to believe them. If they're telling a lie, we're the first ones to know, because people who abuse are liars and we spot a liar pretty quick. So start believing the people around you who tell you what a wonderful person you are in many different ways. Believe them. It's the first, tiniest way that we can begin to build our self-esteem back up. Feelings of powerlessness. I can't tell you how much that has affected my life, but it has. And I didn't even know that I had a feeling of powerlessness. The irony is, though, I've done many things to not be powerless. I take steps to make sure that I'm headed in the direction that is productive for me. Doesn't always work, but we always learn. Feelings of powerlessness can often come back to something as simple as recognizing when I need to say no instead of being kind 500 times a day. Keep it simple. Your mind, your thoughts will want to create more chaos out of this information, but you need to go, well, no. Sorry, I want to keep it simple. If you were to take back feelings of power, how or what would you do if you had them? And then if you start taking the actions, then it makes it possible for the feelings to catch up with your actions. And that I know does work. It can be hard to relate to men or authority figures. And I would also say if there are men, it's hard to relate to women and authority figures. I can say this is true for me in that I don't suffer fools gladly. So if somebody's position of authority and they have no respect for anyone, they don't treat others with kindness, and they treat me as though I'm unintelligent. That's one of my bugbears. It's like, I can see what you're doing, so don't treat me like I'm dumb. I have had challenges in the past with authority figures, and now I'm able to just let authority figures be who they are and go on with my journey. But the steps in between are a bit of a process. Our physical and moral boundaries are crossed. Let's face it, as a kid, we haven't even had time to determine what our moral boundaries are. So everything is crossed and our physical boundaries are crossed. Oftentimes we feel that we can't do anything to change our physical side of life as an adult, and we can. We have to be the ones that determine that we're going to put our power back into changing our physical circumstances. And it will happen a little bit at a time. We can't have all the healing at once. And we have to determine what our moral boundaries are, what sits right within us, not what other people do. At the moment in the world, there are many ways to live life. There are many people with many different morals. But you have to find the ones that suit you, that sit well in your heart, that align with who you are as a person and who I am. That is important. And again, that can go, you can go through stages where you try things and it doesn't work. And life is an experience, so we have to experience what doesn't work sometimes too. Now, this is a really important part, okay? This is the spiritual side of what an abuser does. An abuser contaminates a child's spirit or our dominant mental inclination. When I read that, it was like a whole lot of pieces fell into place. They contaminate our dominant mental inclination. So how we would choose to think as a soul, as a whole soul, they contaminate it. So literally, they take our thoughts away from us. They take, and especially for me when it's so young, they take our ability away to think in the most loving manner, and they replace it with fear. So a lot of the thoughts that we have are fear-based. A lot of our life, a lot of our decisions have been fear-based to just survive. And it's not just changing our thoughts though, because this is the spiritual aspect. We have to come to a place where our spirit is healed too, so that we can recognize where the contamination still exists in fear. Where are our thoughts going down a pathway of fear that it's leading to decisions that are going to make sure that we have a repeat episode of something unproductive in our life? Think of a couple of bad relationships you've had. The contamination of your dominant mental inclination is having an effect in that area. Our thoughts are then divided. So then we have a time in our life where we've had healing, and there are times when we feel so full and we've got the power happening and we're happy and full on, and the next thing you know, a thought comes out of nowhere and slices it all in half. That's when a contaminated thought comes in. So we have to slow our thoughts down enough that we can hear them, that we hear their rhythm, and that we understand when we can say, no, I'm not going down that path anymore. It's not easy because it requires work. But as I tell you all in group, the work is worth it. The healing, the recovery is tenfold when we address every aspect that we can. Now, I hope that this has all been helpful for you. It certainly helped me understand why why my thoughts, even though I feel good or I feel positive and I'm focused, and next thing you know, my thoughts will go off and derail me. And I was struggling with, why does this keep happening? Then when I read this, I understood why it kept happening. There's still a bit more healing to go. And in that process of healing, we get to feel whole. I'll just read the comments and see if anyone needs help at the moment. Yeah, shallow compliments. Yeah, that'd be one thing, definitely, Serena. Yeah, and it is hard. It's hard because we've not been taught as children that we can have support and overcome this. We were taught as children to isolate and try and work it out on our own because we were told, keep it secret. And now as adults, we need to come out of keeping things secret, keeping ourselves secret. So it's not even about whether we keep sexual abuse secret or not. It matters more that we come out of ourselves. And we come out of ourselves as we begin to rebuild our lives and come into community with other people. Thanks everybody for listening and watching, and I hope this has helped. You can comment down below, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I hope this blesses you as it has blessed me. Thank you.